good afternoon, good evening to all the participants who are listening to this webinar from different parts of the region. I really hope you and your families are safe because in times like this is what matters the most. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Bayt.com for inviting me to speak in this virtual business conference today to share some insights on the topic COVID impact, hiring initiatives during uncertain times. I also want to thank you, the audience, in advance for your time because you took this time to enhance your knowledge, learn from different perspectives, views, and that will help accelerate your learning journey. I believe this is extremely important, not just in times like this, but always. I personally am very excited to be speaking to you in being in front of you virtually and then contributing to your learning journey. And I hope by end of this session, you will have a few takeaways from the discussion. I will share my screen. I hope you're able to see that.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Just to give you a quick overview, as Iman mentioned, I work for Siemens. For the past 3 years, I head the talent acquisition for Siemens here in the region. And it's an exciting organization, a great company, which has been in the market for over 170 years. We've got over 385,000 employees working with us worldwide, spread over 200 countries. So it's a very, very large organization. It's let's say an industrial giant, which is one of the market leaders in the area of electrification, automation, and digitalization. Every one of us working in Siemens contribute to the vision of the company, which is to make real what matters. Siemens setup, as you can see from the slide, it primarily consists of 3 operating companies, which is gas and power, smart infrastructure, digital industries. And in addition, you also have the strategic companies, which is Siemens Mobility, Gamesa, which is the renewables, and the Healthineers. To support the business, we also have the corporate functions and also the other strategic divisions such as the IoT, corporate technology, Next 47 and all. And we also have the governance units. I think you might have read in the news as well that Siemens as an organization is going to be carving out the gas and power division. So the new Siemens AG organization would look like this, that comprises of digital industries, smart infrastructure and mobility. And obviously you have all the corporate development, IoTs and Next 47, the service companies and the governance units to support it. What will going forward the new Siemens ecosystem look like? The Siemens ecosystem will comprise of the new Siemens AG organization, which is headquartered in Germany. You also have the Siemens Healthineers and Siemens Energy. And coming to the topic, 2020, we expected it will bring a lot of different things, but many of us, and certainly not I, did not expect 2020 to be bringing this. So what makes this extremely unique is that it's a societal crisis threatening the lives of people all over the world. And we are in this situation where we are, but certainly we didn't expect 2020 to be unfolding so many surprises this time around. And what I wanted to do in the presentation is that I would focus on the talent acquisition piece and some of the global trends that is emerging from the overall COVID crisis. So the COVID-19 impact on the global talent market is primarily a lot of things which most of us know about. There's an overall slowdown in the hiring activity across many sectors, and many say it is for the first time since the 2009 recession. The number of permanent jobs, the contract jobs, everything's going down, and it's considerably on the slower side. Globally, economies are grappling with high number of job losses. For example, if we have to see what we hear from US, I mean, in a couple of weeks, you've had probably like over 30 million people registering for the benefits because of the impact it has had on their jobs. If you read some of the reports from the International Labour Organization, some predict the overall job losses can cross over 200 million. There are restrictions on talent mobility due to the lockdown, and countries are on a lockdown. We expect the global economy to shrink over 3% in 2020. But the positive news is that it will rebound by probably 5.8% in 2021. We also see from a hiring perspective, there's a heavy spike in the usage of digital platforms for interviewing. There is a worldwide decline in working hours. Remote working seems probably would be the new normal. And unlike what it was an exception, maybe in certain industries like IT, people are quite used to it. But I think it soon would emerge as the new normal. We also see there is a high focus in the internal resource utilization and domestic recruitment because of the COVID crisis. And in this slide, I want to show you some insights from various research studies. And if you can see, and some of the topics that I mentioned in the previous slide, that how you see there is a worldwide decline in office hour, in working hours. And that's pretty much like 6.7% of the global workforce. So that's roughly around 195 million people the expectation is that they're working fewer hours. And this top analysis on the far right gives you how it is segregated between different regions, the APAC, Americas, Africa, Europe, Central Asia, and Arab states, which is us here in the Middle East region. And it's also giving us an indication of how the COVID has impacted the workers at risk based on different sectors. There are certainly some vulnerable sectors like retail, manufacturing, accommodation, airline, travels, and all that. And also, but on the flip side, you have some positive trends emerging in terms of industries like agriculture, health, education, where you see in general the risk level is not as high. But on the positive side, if you have to see, there are a lot of surveys by different consulting firms going around, surveying different business leaders to see their opinions, to see what they think. And the good news is that most of the business leaders see that there would be a positive rebound. They expect this whole situation to be coming under control, hopefully in the next couple of months. And that is what the trend that you see here, where, in certain regions, overall there is an expectation and hope that we would rebound very soon in the next few months, 3 to 6 months at the max, yeah. And here in the slide, it gives you a little bit of insight on the landscape for the Middle East region and the hiring trends in general. This information that you see here is the World Economic Outlook report from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which was published a few days ago, where it gives you an indication of how the countries will fare economically from a growth perspective. And as expected, in 2020, there is predicted to be a negative growth for most countries in the region. But on the positive side, 2021, the growth would sure rebound, and hopefully situation by then will come under control, and the economy would rebound by then. And some of the trends that we see here in the region, and many of you, are working here, employed here, are living here, so you know what is happening. So the visa and travel restrictions across all GCC countries have impacted the talent movement. There is an increased focus on nationalization and hiring domestic talent, so which is people, hiring from the country, within country itself, because you have that talent mobility restrictions and because of the travel and all that. Most companies in the region have limited hiring to business critical requirements only, or in some cases they have delayed the hiring, and there are also companies which have canceled the hirings altogether. But on the positive side, you also see the hiring outlook remains positive in some sectors like the internet services, e-commerce, distribution, logistics, software, FMCG, healthcare, e-learning, where there seems to be an indication that the hiring and the activities would remain largely upbeat because of where we are. And governments on the other side are also providing a lot of different measures, coming up with really strong measures to protect the workforce and also support the businesses in large, which is extremely positive. And so I have given you some indication of, what the global trends are and Middle East trends are, and you would be quite interested to know what we do in Siemens. And, I quite like this image, and I wanted to put that there, just to give you a sneak peek into our war room. So literally, each one of us in the Siemens HR team, we turned into Jedis. We literally turned into Jedis. We were rallying in all directions to manage and mitigate the crisis. At the same time, the focus has always been on the people and always on the business. We took some solid measures to restrict hiring, which meant that we move ahead with absolute critical requisitions only. And this is more a global trend. And the positive news is that we still continue to hire. The only difference is that we are extremely careful in what roles that we need to hire, and we only hire roles which are absolutely mission critical. We had to take some tough decisions, of course, to delay the onboarding due to the travel restrictions that we have within the region. So that means that certain contracts and certain people who were supposed to join us maybe a few weeks earlier, they couldn't start. So that means we had to communicate back to them and delay the overall process. One other positive trend that's emerging, as they say, with every adversity, there's also an opportunity, is that COVID turns out to be the chief digital officer. Yeah, we use some really cool technology within our TA organization, and we observed that the adoption rate seems really going up. We use some platforms for learning, for interviewing, and a lot of other aspects, and we observed that the adoption rate is really going up, which is quite positive. The situation has also forced some radical behavior changes, and remote working seems working fine. It was always a debatable topic. Would we be productive when I'm working remotely from the comforts of my home? But that seems to be absolutely working fine. Video interviewing and meeting seems okay. We've all complained about work-life balance and all that, and that surprisingly seems to be in the right spot too. And obviously there are many more benefits, right? But I really wanted to summarize some of the key things here. And one other observation is that while we are doing all these things, I've observed that we have always been holding on to certain values and behaviors, and that is what you will see here in the hashtags, right? So we've always, we've been very collaborative. We all take accountability. We are empathetic. We are courageous. We take ownership. We take responsibility, and we care for each others. I think these are some of the common values that I see within the colleagues here. That makes me all the more proud, filled with pride that I work for Siemens and amid some great group of people. And in the slide here, I want to give you an indication of how we navigate the recruiting organization in uncertain times. And some of these things that I do is what I currently do with the team. So if I have to group everything together and segment it, so I had to pretty much segment it in 4 four areas. One is, how do we manage working remotely? That comes again from the fact it is people first. And then how about digital dexterity? And how do we focus on transformation? And by doing all these things, we also have to be very much business oriented and business centric. And some of the common themes and guiding principles that we always follow within the tea organization in times like this, and always as well, is that how do I optimize, based on based on the current situation, based on the current resources, how do we innovate, and how can we be flexible, and how can we influence each other, influence stakeholders, whether within it is between us, within the HR team, within the talent acquisition team, or between the stakeholders, as in the customers, hiring managers, candidates, all alike, right? How and in the core of it is how do we continue to be an agile organization? I mean, these are some of the principles that we really live by, and I thought I wanted to share that with you. How and end of the day, we spoke about different segments, and this probably will give you a little bit more insight on things that we do. And elaborating that previous slide a bit further is, how do I create value in the VUCA world, right? So and these are initiatives that I do within the team, and one is the number one first priority obviously is the well-being of the team, right? And we need each other more often than ever to ensure productivity. I have virtual stand-up calls with the team every day for half an hour. We really bounce on different topics. We exchange ideas, we have fun, we have games. I think the motive behind is to just remain connected, even though we don't see each other every day. And just to give you that comfort that we are there for each other. That really is the ultimate purpose. But it works really well. And one other aspect, and this is something that I personally am very passionate about, is investing in learning. How do we encourage and engage the team on value-added projects? We use different platforms within Siemens. We have digital tools. Each recruiters are equipped with different digital tools, and there's a lot of resources available, so they can continue on their learning and learn different topics, whether it's about agile, whether it's about Scrum, all different topics, right? And we made sure that everyone spends and invests enough time and effort into learning, and you also contribute in different value-add projects. And in times like this, I understand that, okay, recruitment volumes can go down, but it also means that you have that opportunity to focus on transformation, focus on improvements. We effectively work, collaborate virtually. We have some great opportunity to drive and adopt with the adoption of new technologies. Yeah, that's really a positive trend. We partner with business and understand the risk levels extremely well. We build a robust pipeline strategy for future hiring needs. This is something that, as we speak, we are actively working on. Yes, on one side, you might not have the volumes that you're used to, but you actually can utilize the time to work on a solid pipeline strategy, and conducting market maps, and to be ready when the future comes in with new hiring demands. The impression that you will give to the businesses, to your customers, when you go there, and being a step ahead is totally different. We ensure there is transparency in communication with the hiring managers and customers, and it is totally okay to communicate, well, there are hiring delays or there is a hiring freeze, but the key is to be honest about what is going on and being transparent, and we do that and live that each day. We emphasize a lot on internal hiring of late, and it's always been a priority even before, but we see that in times like this, there is a high trend of focusing more on the internal hiring and more so on the domestic talent for obvious reasons, right? Because we cannot bring in people from other countries because of where we are. So our efforts is to see what do we have within the country and see if we can identify resources who are already living in a country where the requisition is open. And I already spoke about, how can we actually focus on process improvements? We look at average time to fill, we see, okay, what do we need to do to bring this down? How do we make the process even more effective? What are, and probably if you look at the lean process and everything, right, the lean principles, to see how do we actually eliminate waste in a process. So we focus on a lot of these kind of initiatives, and this is what we do right now. And I thought it would be quite nice to share with you all these insights so you know what is going on. And finally, lockdown can bring a lot of different things, right? Lockdown can this is a time to look at it as an opportunity and not as an adversity. We can really focus on process improvements, and at the same time, we need to focus on building that positivity amongst people, because in times like this is where we forge the strongest bonds. These are one of those unprecedented times, and unprecedented times calls for unprecedented measures. So finally, what is COVID reminding us, right? We can all talk about business and everything, but I really wanted to put these little points together. I read a really beautiful article a couple of days ago, and I wanted to share this with you. There was an analysis on a TED talk done by Bill Gates some time back, and there were some really good points, and I picked up some that I got really connected with, which I wanted to share with you. One is, it's out there for you to read, that we're all equal and we're all connected. Religion, color, financial status, power, it has little value, and it is nothing but false borders. Life is short and our health is precious, so let's never neglect it. And how important our family and home life is, right? It forces to strengthen our family unit, not to be materialistic, as sometimes it's the essentials that we need. I'm happy going to the grocery store, just bringing in some vegetables and fruits. I really at the moment don't want to and don't care about going to a fancy restaurant and all that. I mean, it's many a times it's just the essentials, right? And we realize that now. Our true work is not our job. Our true work is actually to look after and protect each other. And this one is very interesting. The earth is actually sick. Yeah, we are our guest and not the master. We've heard a lot of Fridays for Futures, and we've heard we've looked at deforestation and the impact it has on climate and all that. But if you look at it now, actually nature seems to be getting better without us. In parts of India, you see the Himalayas for the first time from the cities, which was never the case for decades now. And I read another article where I guess it was in the Antarctica, the ozone layer hole seems to be closing down automatically. So it seems to be healing on its own. So which I found was very amazing. So finally, it's COVID obviously is a great corrector. It's a time for us to reflect and understand. And one thing certainly that I want to leave you with is to never let go of the hope, and this too shall pass. With that, I pause, and I really want to open it up for question and answers. And let's see if I have any questions coming there. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the questions here. There's one question that I just got now, is in As in, do you think that if we start new era of working from home, will that affect the salaries? At the moment, I mean, we cannot say that in terms of the actual work and all, the salaries would still will be the same, right? It doesn't matter whether you're working from home or whether you're working from the office. What you do and what you contribute would be the same. But probably one thing that could be interesting, and this is not something that we are doing right now, but it's just me speaking. If you look at it logically, right, if companies are providing transportation allowances, and if your salary structure has a transportation allowances and maybe a fuel card and all that, and going forward, certain roles will continue to be decided as working from home, then a rational question to ask is that why should then organization pay for the transportation allowance? That's logical, right? I mean, things like this. Yeah, at the moment, there are no such discussions as in to reduce or change the salaries just because you work from home. But if I just look at it rationally, and if your salary includes a certain transportation allowance and petrol card, and if I'm not driving at all to work, then it's also okay for companies to say, well, we don't pay you the transportation allowance. I hope that answered the question. And I still have other questions coming in. Yeah, I have a question here, which I will read it out to you. What would be your advice to companies that haven't followed digitalization and faced bigger challenges during the current situation? Do you like to give a quick tip so they can follow as a plan until they get on top of these changes? Yes, I understand where you come from. Not all organizations are digitally ready, but this is also a wake-up call for companies that when crisis comes, you just don't know how things will shape. So it is a time, to pick up on all these things and to be digitally ready organization, because going forward, the future is certainly digital. So if you do not have certain tools right now within your organization, there are a lot of providers that are offering solutions for a very optimal cost. So I would really recommend you to go ahead and look at some of these solution providers and see if you can quickly get some of these installed in your organization. But being digital will sure be the way forward. I've got another question which says, thank you, Aswini. In your opinion, how could companies make up for the team activities, gatherings, fiesta, recognition, team building, etc., especially in the current situation that most of people are working from home? Yes, it's a really good question, Shama. And probably I can share my experience, what I have done with the team. I mean, it's really important that we remain connected with our teams. It doesn't matter that, okay, you're not seeing them face to face, but you're you still got to be connected, right? So first thing, some of the tips that I could give you is that make sure that you have regular interactions with your team. As I said, it could be for 15 minutes every day, half an hour every day. Just make sure that you have that regular interactions and make them feel connected. And there are at the moment also a lot of different companies who are coming up with team activities and maybe corporate social responsibility, focusing on CSR activities. You could also look at some of those organizations and see if you can incorporate some of that. You could also do activities such as something to do with learning. It could be, I mean, I know in Siemens, I think a couple of weeks back, we also had live yoga sessions. So we had one of our employee, conducting live yoga sessions,
That's
and
very
people could
interesting.
register. Yeah, people could really register online and, and go for these live yoga sessions. So, and you can come up with a lot of such activities. And finally, when it comes to recognition, it not necessarily recognition has to be in front of 1,000 people in a big business
Okay.
function, conference hall, right? it
Sure.
it could be as simple as recognition, by saying thank you, and you can copy actually some of the team members or a broader team, and that could make the individual feel special and empowered. So you can really think of little activities. Sometimes the simplest things in lives can be the most beautiful. So start with something simple, and that should probably help you out as well. Ah, so what did COVID-19 add to you as at a personal level? Answer live. Okay, cool. Good. That's a really good question. For me, COVID-19 has taught me a lot of different things, right? And this is why probably the last slide that you see there, these are some of my own personal thoughts as well, which I truly believe in. On another side, I have two children who are going to school, and with that starts the online education. So I find it a little challenging to actually help them with their studies and online learning. The older one is still fine, but with the younger one, it's really a fight every day. But it's all right. I mean, it is. I cannot complain. And I told this to to my team many times as well. When I look at what the world is going through, what different people are going through, and to compare that with what the situation that I am in, I have zero complaints whatsoever. I am happy with what I have right now, and okay, it doesn't mean that haven't stepped out for the house, outside the house for weeks now, but I still don't complain, because comparing to what people in the world, are many people that are going through, mine is nothing. So I'm happy, but it just also tells you that some of the limitations, you decide what the limitations are, right? And it has challenged my thought process as well. Things that I thought will not happen, which is working from home and teaching my younger son ABCD, but that seems to be happening now. So it's all fine.
It's happening in every house now. We're
Yeah,
all
exactly,
learning.
exactly. I mean, all of the parents, they are superstars, so all is good.
If you'd like me to help you and reading out loud some of the questions, there's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also just cautious of the time. Hope I've not overrun.
We're enjoying your presentation, so it's all right. Yeah.
Good.
There's a question. Do you think the current time is convenient to consider a new business opportunity?
Sorry, say it again. Do you
There's
think
a
the current
question
time
by.
is convenient to consider new business opportunity? Yeah. Yes, that's an interesting question. It depends on what you mean by new business opportunity, and I do not know, what ideas you have in mind. But in general, people are being conservative. It depends on the idea, really. I mean, if the idea you think can be sold in the current climate, then why not, right? But in general, at least based on what I understand and what I see from the markets, and how the markets are responding, people are generally being very conservative. But yes, there are certain industries like pharmas and all that picking up. You just have to evaluate what your idea is, conduct a feasibility study, and then invest in certain business opportunity.
I think if it's going digital as well, it would help. It would be more beneficial because every all companies now are following the digital era and the
Exactly.
technology. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It totally depends on the idea that you have in mind, and and when people ask me about business and all that, one message that I always give is if you believe the idea is powerful, if you are passionate about that idea, and then it's a different story, right? So if one person that needs to be totally convinced that your idea is powerful and that you believe in that idea is you. Once you do that, and everything else is will fall into place. That's my personal, let's say,
True.
viewpoint on
All true.
businesses. Yeah. um yeah. And one other question that I can see is, as HR and TA, how do we ensure we thrive post-corona? That's a really good question, because now companies have already started looking into it. I mean, if you look at what is happening within the economy, economies are still grappling, of course, with the overall number of cases and all, but you also see that they're opening up the market. So slowly it will pick up, right? But one thing that we need to ensure, I mean, is to actually look at what do we have, right? And this is where the things that we do right now is so critical to ensure that we remain successful post-corona era. Very clearly, some of the business practices, work practices will change. New roles will emerge. Probably the overall volumes that we are traditionally used to will not be the case as well, right? Because organizations want to be really selective. As TA, we just have to be. I think one thing is you have to keep up your learning curve, and never continue with building up and reskilling and upskilling, because the skills what you would need probably in few years from now is going to be very different from what the job market of today is seeking. So you just have to continue to be upbeat and upskill. Focus on digitalization for people who are not very used to working on different tools or access to technology. Now is the time, right? So these are things, and other elements such as effective communication and collaborating, and working together. These are things that will never change, right? No matter whether it's pre-COVID or post-COVID area. But upskilling yourself and digitalization, these are absolute criticals. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all the questions, and because there are some repeat questions focusing on the same topics, so I'm assuming I've covered that.
Thank you, Aswini, for your time. We really enjoyed your presentation and your insights. The session is already recorded and will be uploaded on the auditorium section for later view. We really appreciate your presentation and being part of this event, and we hope you a very good evening.
Thank you, and thank you to all the listeners in the call today, in the webinar today. I wish you all the very best. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, and stay safe all. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.